Hey crafters, thanks for joining me. Today we're going to make a fun Swish and Pop card with some of my favorite Lawn Fawn sets. Hope you enjoy! So for this card I used 4 main stamp sets. The first one is the Sets-S'more-Merrier set, and I used the guitar from this. The second one is the Ocean Shell-fie stamp set, and from this set I used the larger octopus, the large jellyfish, and I stamped 2 of the smaller jellyfish. And I also stamped 2 of the fish that are swimming to the side. So from the Mermaid for You FlipFlop, I stamped the main mermaid. And then from Mermaid for You, I stamped 1 mermaid and the merman. And then the fish from both the Mermaid for You and the FlipFlop. And then I also did 2 cute little seahorses. Also from Mermaid for You, I stamped 3 pieces of coral. And first I did them in Distress Oxide, and then I stamped Distress ink on top. And it gave them sort of a neon corally look that I thought looked really effective. Perfect for an underwater scene. So the main focal point of this card is the 3 mermaids at the bottom of the ocean having a little party. And to make them look more like mermaids, I used purples and turquoises to color them in. So this one I did with purples first, and then after I blended the 2 purples together, I put turquoise on top. I really like turquoise, and that helped to lighten up the purple. The other one I put the turquoise first and the purple on top, which you'll see shortly. And then I used 2 different combinations of Copics just to add some interest on the skin. And to make the hair look more realistic, I put the lightest color first and then just used the darker color to add streaks. I wanted this mermaid to have sort of strawberry blonde hair, so I took a pink sparkly pen and put that on top of the blonde. And then to lighten it a little bit further, I added some white gel pen on top as well. And I also used the white gel pen to add some details to the mermaid's costume and to her tail. And a mermaid wouldn't be complete without some sparkles, so I used some Stickles and just put it on her bathing suit and her tail. And you'll see when I move my hand, you have a beautiful sparkly mermaid. So here's the finished mermaid and the other mermaid, as well as the merman. And I'll just set these aside until the Stickles are completely dry. Now meanwhile, I'll do my background. So I'm going to start with some Twisted Citron, and this is Distress ink, and I'm going to blend it in the center of my card. Now this card is 5 by 7 inches, which is my finished card size. And I want to create sort of a focal point in the center of my scene here, where the merman will be sitting. And I'm going to blend some cracked pistachio around this. Now because I'm blending Distress Oxide onto Distress ink, you'll see that the inside looks very bright, whereas the Distress Oxide is a bit more muted. And then I'll just blend these 2 colors together. Now once I'm happy with that, I'll add some Mermaid Lagoon around the outside. And each time I'm trying to stick to that oval shape and just working out so that it gets slightly bigger, so that I still have my focal point in the middle of the card. So once I've gone all the way around that cracked pistachio with the Mermaid Lagoon, I'm going to use my Mermaid Lagoon and blend those 2 colors together. I just love this color combination. I think it would work well for a night sky as well. So once I'm happy with that, I'm going to go in with my final color, and this is Chip Sapphire Distress Oxide. And I'm going to blend this around the entire outside of the card. And then I will go back and forth between the Chip Sapphire and the Mermaid Lagoon until I'm happy with the blending. And I did speed up the camera a little bit here just so this video wasn't too long for you. So once I'm happy with that, I will set this background aside to dry completely before I use it in my die cutting machine. So to use the Swish N Pop mechanism, I started by using the guide with the 4 holes, and I lined it up onto my background, taped it into place, and then ran it through my die cut machine. While I was die cutting, I also die cut the arm with some acetate, and then 2 of the pieces that you pull, the lever pieces. And I like to cut 2 so that I can glue them together and make a sturdier lever. So I'm just going to make sure those are secured together, and then I can attach the lever and the arm together with a brad. And then I can put this through the second hole on my background and use another brad to attach this. I'm just going to make sure this works properly before I finish working on my background. And then I can add some foam tape along the bottom. And every time I add the foam tape, I just want to check that the mechanism still works properly so that I know I haven't put it too high on the card. For example, this piece was a little bit low, so I'm going to end up removing that piece, cutting it in half lengthwise, and then putting it back on so it's a thinner piece of foam tape. So you just want to make sure that your foam tape doesn't interfere with that arm. So I'm just going to add a little bit more foam tape onto my background here, and then I'll just check it one last time to make sure it works. And now I can finish working on the front of my card. So for my mermaids, I wanted to make a little bit of a cave where they could be sitting having a little concert. So the way I did this is I took the main rock. This is from the Mermaid for You stamp set, and I stamped it several times onto some full stick post-it note paper. And there's about 4 pieces of post-it note paper in each pile. Now if you prefer, you could do this with any kind of masking tape or masking paper. But I like the full stick post-it notes because you can reuse them a few times before they lose their stickiness. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut out each pile, and I'm being careful and trying to cut right on the black line, which is the best way to do masking. Now after I've cut all of these apart, I'm going to separate them onto my craft mat, and then I can start stamping my background cave. So I started by stamping the rock and then putting a mask on top of it. And then I just kept repeating this, stamping it in random places so that it would look like a rock wall or a cave when I was finished. And I made sure that the placement of my rock was random and that it was always overlapping itself. And I went about 4 rocks high and the entire length of my card, making sure to fill in any spaces with another rock. And also making sure to cover every rock that I stamped so that I could create that overlapping masked look. So I did this about, like I said, 4 rocks high, and I wanted the left side to be higher than the right, just to make a little bit of interest on my card. And then once I was happy with the height of the card, or the height of my rock wall, I just used a ruler to double check that it was high enough to cover the Swish N Pop mechanism. And then I just decided that I needed another rock on the top just to be on the safe side. And then once I was happy with my rock wall, I just cut along the top edge the entire length of it. And then I removed all the masks, and you can see the gorgeous wall of rocks, or the little cave for the mermaids. So to color in the rocks, I just started with the C7 along the outside and then put some C5 inside of that, blended the two of them together, and then added C3 on the inside of the rocks. And I just repeated that on all the rocks. And you can see it's perfect for covering that Swish and Pop mechanism. So I'm just going to add that little guide on the side to die cut the hole for the arm that goes out of the Swish and Pop mechanism. So now I can add it to the front of my card. I'll just remove that backing paper on the foam tape, put my rock wall in place. And now before I set the scene, I'm just going to add on the little fish onto that acetate arm. And I used both schools of fish, and I'm just putting them on so that they fly slightly over that turquoise and green area on the middle of the card. And I decided to use both double-sided tape and PVA glue just to make sure they stayed in place. And I'm just going to test my mechanism to make sure it works. And you see that top layer of fish kind of goes over that rock wall. So I'm just going to squeeze another piece of double-sided foam tape in there, and so that it clears the top there. Now I'm just going to add some music notes around that twisted citron ink. And these music notes are from the Sets-S'more-Merrier stamp set. And I'm just going to do them in the middle of the card now, but I will add some more later, as you'll see. So once I'm happy that I've got them mostly in the center of the card, I'm going to position my merman in the middle there. And I'll just glue him into place on one of the rocks. And then I'll use the little guitar from Sets-S'more-Merrier and glue that in his arms so it looks like he's playing his guitar for the other mermaids. And then I'll use some of the seaweed from Mermaid for You, and I'll glue that onto the back area of the rocks. And that just adds a little pop of color and helps to set the scene. Now I'm also going to have the jellyfish watching the merman, and I'll put the two mermaids on the rocks there. And then it wouldn't be complete without those cute little fish on the side, and I'll put the little seahorses on the other side so that they have all come to listen to the concert and perhaps sing along with the merman. Now, once I'm happy with the placement of all the little fish and the mer people, I'm going to continue stamping those music notes around the outside of the card so that it looks like the music is filling the whole ocean floor. Now, for the main sentiment, I used the sentiment from the Mermaid for You FlipFlop stamp set, which says "Make a Splash." And I stamped this onto some black cardstock with some VersaFine, and then I heat embossed it in white because I thought because this scene is quite dark, it would look better with a dark sentiment. And I wanted the fish to be able to swim underneath that sentiment. So what I did is I put some foam tape underneath the sentiment, but left a little gap there so that the fish could swim through it. So the last thing I need to do on the front of the card is just shorten that arm and add the little indicator so that the recipient knows that they can pull that arm. So I'm just going to trim off the edge there and then trim that little jellyfish off the side. And then I've just colored in the arrow piece with some purple Copic pen, and I'll just glue that onto the arm mechanism. So now I can attach my card to my card base. This is a 5x7 inch card base, and I'm just going to use PVA glue to do this, just being careful not to add any glue over the mechanism there. And then I'll glue it on the back. And I prefer to use white glue when I can, just to make sure that I can squeeze my card base onto the card front and it lines up properly. And for the inside of the card, I'm going to use that large octopus, which I've cut out, and the stamp set which will be from On the Beach, and it just says, "It's your birthday." And I'll just glue that octopus right beside the sentiment. And you could always add some more fish on the inside if you prefer. It's up to you. And now, once I'm happy with the placement of that octopus, you can see the finished card, the inside with that octopus, and the outside with the Swish N Pop pull tab mechanism. Such a fun birthday card. I just love this interactive element. It's so hard to stop playing with it. It's so much fun. Thanks for watching, and I hope you found this video inspiring. Be sure to subscribe so that you're notified whenever I post a new video. Have a crafty day!